Paso County Animal Law Enforcement Division of the Humane Society of Pikes Peak Region, and yes, that's a mouthful. That's a lot of information to get out there really quickly. Basically, our organization is divided into 4 divisions. I am the training manager for all. And what I'm going to present to you guys today is a little bit about what it is we do, how we do it. I'm actually even going to present a few laws to you, let you guys see what it is you actually enforce out there. And as you're out and about in your own community there, you can give us a call to see some violations while you're out. And then Chief Joe is going to go ahead and introduce a few things to you and let you see some actual video about some of the things we do out there. So with that, this is how I'm going to break it down for you guys. We'll talk a little bit about our mission, Humane Society and Animal Law Enforcement. And if you have any questions as I go along, please feel free, just go ahead and ask. But maybe hold up your hand because I like that old-fashioned thing. Plus I have a laser pointer. It doesn't work on the TV though, LCD. And then we'll talk a little bit about the most frequently enforced animal control ordinances. Our SORT team, which is our Special Operations Response Team. And then I'll open it up for questions and answers if you guys would like to do that. So, with that, the Humane Society of the Pikes Peak region is trying to help create a compassionate society where animals are cared for and valued. Not cared for and valued like we would like them to be, but basically like the law requires them to be. And then animal law enforcement's mission is very, very long. I'm not going to read that off to you, but basically we break it down to we want to protect people from animals and animals from people. That is what it basically says right here, believe it or not. And then we come out every once in a while into the community like we are right now and hopefully teach some folks a little bit about it. So our divisions, we work Centennial Animal Control up north. I guess that way.
Yeah.
That way? Okay. I don't see my mountains. So
Yeah,
I can tell where I am right now. Douglas County, we provide services there. El Paso County, Colorado Springs, and then Pueblo. So 4 of the counties within Colorado we actually control. That's where we're contracted to do all the animal control within all those. So basically, the Southern Front Range is what we handle. These are just some of the laws that we enforce here in El Paso County alone. Quite a lot for our officers to have to learn, just in this one division. Now you can imagine if an officer from here goes up and helps in another division like Douglas County, Centennial, maybe down to Pueblo, all the different laws they have to learn in those as well. So there's a lot for our officers to have to put on their plates. This is just the local stuff here, and I did not include Manitou. Sorry, Chief, our newest contract that we got, I did not include them. We also go there as well. So, Fountain, Monument, our state violations, yes, some of our officers actually work for the Bureau of Animal Protection under the Department of Agriculture. I'm one, he's one, there are several others there at the Humane Society that do the same thing. So we get to enforce on a different level. I'm going to trip over that thing, you wait and see. We enforce on a different level the state statutes as well. So, unlawful ownership, dangerous dog, and cruelty to animals there, plus all of your municipal violations, county violations, and then monuments, and of course, fountain. Yay. Our most commonly enforced animal ordinances kind of breaks down this way, though. We saw a whole bunch of them here. Thank goodness we don't do all of those every day, right? These are the ones we pretty much or primarily are involved with on a day-to-day basis. So you have your dogs at large, duty to restrain within Colorado Springs, and that includes cats. In Colorado Springs, for all of you that have cats, you keep it on your own property. It's just like police law for dogs.
Yeah.
Anybody know that? Okay, yeah. You know that, huh? All right. Dangerous animals and vicious dogs. That takes up a lot of our time. Unlawful ownership of dangerous dog, and that's the state level that we're talking about there. Those we normally reserve for your more heinous type of attack, serious bodily injury, those kind of things, or the death of another animal. We do have that a lot here. We inherited a lot of animals from Denver. Anybody guess what breed it was? So we got a lot of them from the folks up in Denver. Family, friends that stay down here in the Springs, they know they're not banned here, so they give them up over to them. We end up having to deal with those down here. License and rabies violations, big one for us. And then cruelty to animals. That's that part of protecting animals from people. You'd be amazed at how much of this we actually get involved in. We conduct full-fledged investigations. It's not just a response to the police department who says, hey, we've got somebody out here beating their dog. We need you to come after we arrest them and take the dog away. We actually do the investigation for them, full-fledged criminal investigation into those acts. Nerds, I did break the laws down for you. Anybody want to read along with me? As far as that goes. Some of the things that surprise people, though, when we normally bring this up in Colorado Springs, it includes cats, as well as hoofed animals, but cats primarily don't know that they have to keep them on their own property. So something to consider if you live here. Licensing also includes cats in Colorado Springs. It does not yet in Fountain, although Fountain's laws mirror Colorado Springs laws almost letter by letter, so it probably won't be too long before they adopt those into theirs as well. For those of you who live down there, it's a coming. It's a coming. This is our county resolution for those areas of El Paso County that have a designated animal control area. These types of laws would apply to them as well. They even go so far as to designate how long your leash can actually be. Less than 15 feet. So anything longer than that can actually be tagged. I don't think any of our officers carry a little tape measure with them, so probably going to be able to get away with one that might be 16 feet long. 20, I got that. I got 20 feet, and it's law. Don't have any idea. Well, maybe a little bit. Let's see, dangerous animal. Talked a little bit about the fact that we do enforce those protecting people from animals. That is our primary focus, public safety. That's what we're all about in animal law enforcement, is public safety. So this is key for us in making sure that people and property are protected from animals that are out roaming at large or even on a leash that are attacking people. Anybody here have a pet they take to a, well, let's just say dog park? Not anymore. Good. Good. Did you learn?
I have a 5-pound chihuahua.
Yeah.
I got bit by a big dog.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not a huge advocate of dog parks. I mean, some people are successful, but
yeah, she got it.
Yeah, and we enforce that. We'll come out and we'll take care of that. Or, if you're at home, we can come to your home, take a complaint, and go out and investigate and make sure that people are held accountable for that. Did your dog survive?
He is just fine, and she had to pay for the vet bill.
Excellent. Excellent. Those are wins. Those are wins. But dog parks are scary places for a lot of animals, so just keep that in mind if you're out and about in those. And then if there is a problem, give us a call. That's what we do, enforcing that as well. It's not just the park police. And then this is the state level law on dangerous animals. And again, we normally reserve this for your more heinous dog attacks, serious bodily injury, or death of an animal, something along those lines. If there's death of a human, it's probably going to be covered by another law enforcement agency, maybe charging with something different than this. We're probably not going to get into that part. And then death of a human would obviously be a felony, so they're going to want to get involved with it. A different level than we are. Just a little bit more about that. Oh, there was one thing in here. No. Here we go. Domestic animal means any dog, cat, or any animal kept as a household pet or livestock. Does not include pet rocks. Okay, I tried that, it doesn't work out. You can still throw those through somebody's window, different law. If you're violating. Doesn't count. Most folks like to have me read this. Once you hear how I read it, you guys will probably agree. Cruelty to animals. A person commits cruelty to animals if he or she, it didn't used to say she, by the way, knowingly, recklessly, or criminal negligence, overdrives, overloads, overworks, torments, deprives of necessary sustenance, unnecessarily or cruelly beats, allows to be housed in a manner that results in chronic or repeated serious physical harm, carries or confines in or upon any vehicle in a cruel or reckless manner, engaged in a sexual act, by the way, it didn't used to be that way until about 5 years ago, with an animal in Colorado anyway, or otherwise mistreat or neglect any animal or cause it appears to be done, or having charge of custody of any animal fails to provide with proper food, drink, protection from weather consistent with the species, breed, and type of animal involved, or abandons an animal. Wow. That is the cruelty statute for the state of Colorado. A lot there, huh?
Yeah.
I do have a picture of this violation. I will show that before you get to your videos. I want you to see that one. It's the only time I've ever charged somebody with it. You see people periodically driving down the road with the dog in the back of a pickup bed or something along those lines. That's kind of what we're talking about with this. But it could even evolve into a situation where maybe you have it in the back of your vehicle and you don't have it restrained properly, and maybe it causes injury to somebody or something, just because of an automobile accident or something along those lines. I've only charged it once doesn't mean it doesn't occur out there daily. Okay, now we get to talk about our special operation. Any questions over the launch? You guys got all those now, you're locked in, you're ready.
Does Colorado have any breed-specific banning or no? Or is that just a city?
Not Colorado, not Colorado. In fact, the state law prohibits any breed-specific legislation. Denver gets around that because they are a home rule city, so they can make up their own thing. Now, they were challenged on that. They actually went to the Colorado Supreme Court, and they still won. They are allowed to do that. We, as the Humane Society of Pikes Peak region, do not support breed-specific legislation. As far as we are concerned, it is not the breed. You guys know what breeds we're probably talking about, right? That most people want breed-specific legislation for. When I first started working for the Humane Society of Pikes Peak region, it wasn't pit bulls that they were dealing with. No, but it's a similar color. Rottweilers, right, was my first one. Then it moved to chows. Yeah, right? And now we're on the pit bulls. We'll probably change German Shepherds soon. Just kind of rotates. Depends on what the dangerous animal of the day is. You know, who's actually needing that animal to be mean. Right now it's drug people, so pit bulls, he's one you plant 4 of them in your backyard, scare most people away. If you're doing drugs or making drugs, it's super du jour right now. Our Special Operations Response Team has a primary function of different entities under MOUs to provide some level of assistance, not the criminal side of it, but the animal side, helping them rescue animals. Our cat borders, recent one here, over 170 cats taken from a single residence in El Paso County. I think that's our main example one down there. 72 cats stole from a residence when the owner passed away, those kind of things where people just don't even know that it's going on in their neighborhoods. Our first indication is usually somebody calling us because there's an odor coming from that house, and I've seen cats coming and going out of the garage. Could you guys check on these cats? Or they've got poop in their eyes or something like that. So we show up and it's like, oh yeah, I have a lot of cats. And so it can be bad. And then in the disasters, like I said before, the fires are probably our big thing. We did a little bit with the flooding after the Long Canyon fire, but not a lot of rescue with that. We've got a few animals out of Manitou to help at that point in time. But these are just some of the ones that we've been involved in lately. And then the technical animal rescue. That dog was actually up here to scare the cat farther up so we could make it look really dramatic. So that's his only role in that. He was flying up and down himself. Now, I don't know if you guys can see that. Yeah. It's a itty bitty animal there on the side of the cliff. And yeah, they can go up and they can get those too. So, or come down. That's the latest thing is coming down. It's a little more fun. A lot easier on the bodies. Let's do it that way. But they do. Swiftwater rescue, low and high angle rescue. They just rescued some ducks out of a pond up in Green Mountain Falls. Green Mountain Falls? Yeah. They were some domestic ducks that had been left off there. And though they probably would have been okay through the summer following the geese around, because they kind of adopted these two ducks, and people are feeding the geese and all that kind of stuff. Well, they're wild geese, and guess where they go in winter? Away. So the ducks would have been left, and they probably would have perished, unfortunately. So it's a good thing we got them rescued. And these are just some of our team members on the SWORD crew. She's not with us anymore. She works for Pet Animals Care and Facilities Act up in Denver. And then this is just one of the educational programs that these guys provide. They attend over 100 events annually. That's quite a calendar for them to attend and make sure that they're passing on this information to pet owners and trying to at least develop that compassionate care and value kind of thing that they're looking for. And then, of course, disaster preparedness, getting people ready for that, having a go bag for your animal as well. Because when those fires came through Laurel Canyon, guess what? Those folks weren't prepared for that. It kind of surprised people. I think it surprised some of the folks in Black Forest as well. That one really moves fast. I was surprised how quickly it moved. And then, of course, we put the kids in here so that they can keep the dogs and cats company as we ride down. These are special children. They work for the SWORD team. Okay, let's see a few videos. Joe, if you'll humor me for just a second, I can find my file things. That was where I wanted to go. I know that will play that, but I wanted to do my show them that truck with them.
I think it's up more, yeah.
Maybe it's on that side.
I think it's on the other side, yeah.
Yeah, where it says files.
Mm-hmm. Up. Scroll all the way up. I think it's on the very, very top. There you go.
Yep, 2 times. Okay. This vehicle was tooling down Austin Bluffs. Bigger, do you think? Oh, darn. Well, that's not going to work. Sorry, guys. Anyway, the vehicle was tooling down Austin Bluffs, getting close to Stetson Hills Boulevard when we spotted this animal in the back of the pickup bin. He's actually above. You can just see his head and body sticking up above the cab of that truck. He was standing on an engine block in the back of the motor vehicle. When she went around that corner there by Stetson Hills, he rolled off and hit the side of the pickup bed. At least he didn't bounce out, so that was the good news there, but I went ahead and followed her to her destination. Gave her a ticket.
Wow.
Reckless manner is transporting in the reckless manner. Anyway, on to the really cool videos. Did you want to say something first, Joe?
Yeah, maybe.
Oh.
So my name's Joe Stafford, and I'm the Director of Animal Law Enforcement. So Rod runs all of the training. I kind of have overall responsibility for all of our divisions. I mean, just for background, because of your connection with your students and people you might come in contact with. I mean, I've been in some kind of law enforcement for over 30 years, and that's a very tough gig. You know, the people that are coming through your programs, through your school, that's pursuing a criminal justice degree with the intent of being in law enforcement. It's incredibly difficult, and what I will tell you is it's even more complex and difficult today than it was back in my time. I eventually made the transition to this just simply because it was something that I had an affinity and a passion for, and I absolutely love law enforcement, but I also really love the idea of doing something different involving animals. Although everything we do involves people and working with people, we also get to help animals and try to improve that situation. So I think, you know, the real reason why we saw this as an opportunity was to come out and talk with you all. So in the event you have somebody who might be interested in pursuing a degree in criminal justice or really any other degree program, because I can tell you I have had some of the best officers that have been bartenders, that have been hostesses at restaurants, that have been convenience store clerks, and it's really not a skill set that's readily available, although what we really look for is somebody who has an education or an experience in some type of law enforcement or some type of education or experience with animals. Typically, we are going to have to train them to do this job, and our training is fairly involved. Typically, our hiring cycle is early spring, usually around March. We'll start recruiting like in January, and we will typically get about 700 or 800 applicants. But if you are in the position of hiring individuals, you know what it's like trying to find a needle in a haystack. I mean, what I really value are the relationships that we have, and somebody who knows this individual, somebody that has taught them, knows their values, knows their background, or a little bit about that individual. And if a person is really compassionate, empathetic, has an affinity for animals, really wants to help the community, but law enforcement or regular law enforcement either doesn't seem to be a good fit for them, or maybe they're relatively young. And although like CSPD is hiring a lot of young cops right now because they have a lot of turnover with the older folks that are going out on retirement, they would typically love to have people that are a little more mature. So we'll sometimes hire individuals, you know, they have to be 21, but we'll hire a lot of the younger generations and kind of give them a start in law enforcement. A lot of them will move on to regular law enforcement. One of the guys in the picture that was next to Katie, he just graduated the academy, and there's a lot of both CSPD and El Paso County Sheriff's officers, Pueblo deputies that worked for us at one time. So, you know, I wouldn't say just if you're looking, you know, to give someone an idea that, hey, maybe you want to look at this, don't limit it to just your criminal justice type of people. I mean, it really could be from any walk of life. I mean, what I'm looking for when I look to hire somebody above everything else is a set of values, because we can train them to do this job. We can't train somebody to have a set of values that's consistent with our organization. It is incredibly difficult and it's incredibly demanding, and you still have to kind of have that buffer. I mean, I've wore a uniform literally since I was 17 years old, and I'm pushing 50, but I can tell you when I take this off at the end of the day, it stays in the closet till I put it back on the next day, because I've learned to create that separation. This is not who I am. This is simply what I do, and I'm extremely passionate. And I absolutely love it, and I'm sure I will be doing this for a very long time. However, it's not who I am, and you know, separating that identity is very difficult. It's very challenging for us. I mean, I think we have a tremendous opportunity, especially with the most recent generations, millennials, because they tend to want to give back. I mean, but we do run a law enforcement organization. I grew up in the military, and I can only change so much. I mean, it's kind of the way it is. You know, when I need something done, you know, I expect 110%. I mean, so, you know, just to give you an idea or a background, I mean, you know, we would love to have anybody that's affiliated with your organization, and I absolutely value a personal recommendation if that's something you're willing to give, you know, on a personal or a professional basis. That's really what I want to look for. You know, hey, I know this person, or I've worked with this person, or, you know, I've been this person's instructor, teacher, mentor, whatever it might have been, advisor. And I really think, you know, they're somebody who really wants to give back to the community, whatever that might look like, because we will put our initial phase of training will go for about 6 weeks of academics. It's primarily classroom based. We'll be teaching them everything that they need to know about all the laws that Rod talked about, but we have to start with very basic concepts like probable cause. And what is a law, and you know, how is a law structured? Why does it exist? And all of these things that they will typically get in a basic criminal justice program. So that kind of gives them, you know, a leg up. But if they have the criminal justice side, then we have to kind of teach them about animals and, you know, the way that animals behave, why they behave like they do, how to actually affect the outcome that you hope to achieve. And then, of course, you know, we're talking a lot about values and the way that we achieve that. Ultimately, when we go out on a case, what we want to do is raise the level of care that that animal is receiving in that situation. That's our ultimate goal. That doesn't mean we can have that person treat the animal as we would treat them, just simply trying to get them at a higher level or at a minimum in what the law states. I mean, because almost everything that we address is symptomatic of how the animal is being treated, and really what it's symptomatic of is the bond that that person has with the animal. I mean, if you're an animal owner or you have been, you know that dog gives you unconditional love or that cat gives you unconditional love, right? You have the crappiest day in the world. You come home, that animal really doesn't care. It's going to give you unconditional love no matter what, right? That's kind of why we have animals. Well, when that bond is altered, or certainly when it's severed, that's when typically that animal becomes problematic, because it becomes, for lack of a better explanation, a yard animal. It's just left outside to its own devices. It's not given what it craves the most, which is that relationship with its person, with its family. That's what the animal needs and wants. And when you go into a situation like that, you know, and we have people that are absolute animal lovers and that's why they do the job, that can be extremely difficult for them. You know, somebody who's more law enforcement oriented, it's a very easy solution. All you need to do is fix your fence. Why can't you just fix your fence? You know, and they're very logical, and it can't, you know, understand why this person can't get, hey, just take care of this, or I'm going to come back out and write you $200 ticket. And that can be very stressful. I mean, in any law enforcement oriented career, you just see a lot of negative, right? And it can weigh you down. I mean, over time, but you have to learn how to, of course, you know, make that transition out of that. These are 10% of the population typically is what we're dealing with, you know, and that's not typical of society. And then, you know, get involved in some of the positive things that we're trying to do, not just always dealing with, you know, irresponsible individuals, but hopefully if we can raise the level of care. So, I mean, if you have anybody like that, I mean, you know, absolutely send them our way. What, again, I really value is some kind of a recommendation, a letter, an email. It doesn't have to be anything formal. That helps us sort through, you know, these 700 or 800 people. What I'll also tell you is we'll show you a short video here, which is just a clip kind of from an animal copsis show that's going to come out, that's going to feature us pretty soon. So I expect we'll have like 1 million people then that want to come look for us. And that's great and fine and dandy, but all that does is make my life a little bit more difficult and a little bit more challenging, you know, because we really are looking for that person who's the right fit. I mean, I love giving people a start in law enforcement and training them. And again, we give them those basics, then we do a lot of on-the-job training with them, and then we kind of turn them loose because we are a solo patrol. So we give them those tools, then we put them out there to handle the very basic things that we do. We see how they do. Of course, we're going to do any remedial training that's necessary, build up their skill set to get them to where they need to be. And then we're going to bring them back and we're going to provide them some additional academic training around some of the more complex topics we do. Again, give them some on-the-job training, specifically around dealing with dangerous animals, dealing with animal cruelty, all the aspects of that, testifying in court, writing reports, all these things that we do, because the laws that we enforce are criminal, just like what regular law enforcement enforces. We go to the same courthouse and people tend to think, you know, there's some special doggy court and it's, you know, less formal. And it really is. And you walk in and it's just like any other courtroom. You might be following something, you know, a lot more difficult, you know, than the issues that we face, but everything is the exact same. So we're kind of held to the same standards. We work with regular law enforcement a lot. We work with the DA's office. We work with a myriad of organizations throughout the communities that we work in, and it would be impossible for us because at the end of the day here in this county, which is huge, we have 15 full-time staff, and we provide coverage basically 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I mean, now we have regular business hours, which this time of the year is 8 a.m. until about 9:30 p.m., but we have somebody on call after hours in the event that someone encounters an emergency and we need to respond out, which is very common this time of year. I mean, we go out more days of the week than we don't go out. And, you know, that's regardless of holidays, things of that nature. We really try to be as responsive as we can. And, you know, we hope that no one ever encounters a situation like you did, but we want to try to be there to help and support, you know, those individuals. And unfortunately, once you've gone through something like that, you can't unring the bell, right? So we're never going to make you realize or think again it's this utopia where this kind of stuff doesn't happen, right? And that can be very troubling and very traumatic, experience to go through. And obviously a lot of animals, unfortunately, are not cared for. You can see over about 4,200 cases here that we respond to, and some of those are pretty involved and involve a lot of resources and things of that nature. So you can imagine 15 people here in the county trying to do that. What we rely heavily upon is our members of the community calling and telling us, because we're almost completely reactive, meaning we're waiting, counting on people to call us and let us know what's going on, because there's no way we can be proactive, meaning being out in the community and noticing or seeing all these different things that are going on, and then partnering with that individual who reported it to try to affect a positive outcome. Only about 10% of the cases we handle are going to result in enforcement, so I don't want to give anybody the impression that we're out there just writing a bunch of tickets. We're not traffic cops. That's not what we do. Again, the goal is to raise the level of care for the animals. That is a lot of education. And regular law enforcement is the exact same way. Yes, they might write a ticket, if they're a traffic cop, if they're doing that with the intent of trying to get people to obey the traffic laws, because they see people killed on a regular basis in traffic accidents. They see people's lives changed forever, because someone, made a poor judgment, and, they are enforcing the law with that intent. But we do a lot of education working with these people to try to get them. We even will provide them with resources. If somebody, simply does not have resources, being poor is not a crime in my opinion. And if they need help and they need assistance, we're more than happy to give them that. If they need a doghouse, if they need food, whatever it is that we can possibly provide or point them in the right direction on how to obtain those resources, we want to do that as well, right? So we can make them want to be a better pet owner. And of course, if someone can no longer care for their pet, we're happy to take those and find them homes. And we're not the typical humane society in that we cared for about over 20,000 animals last year. To give you an idea, it is a lot of animals. We found new homes for about 17,000 of those animals, found new homes and or got them back to their homes. So, most of the animals, fortunately, make it out alive, but in our job specifically, we deal with a lot of animals that simply are not safe, and they can't be returned, or they've been treated in such a way that they're beyond rehabilitation medically. They just are not doing well because of circumstances. So, we will have to euthanize animals, and that can be an extremely difficult thing for people to deal with. And individuals should be cognizant of that. And, just like everything, you take the good with the bad, right? You try to remember the positives. I'm an optimist, so it's fairly simple for me. I always will remember the ones that I was able to have a positive outcome on, and then I am very quick and easy to forget the ones that I didn't, have the outcome that I wanted. But we have a couple of videos for you guys to watch, and hopefully they'll kind of share, Which one do you want to watch first? Cat rescue? Yes.
Yes.
So this is our sort team that Rod talked about, and this is going to be them going up in the tree to get a cat.
Should have brought the magic lab on top of the house.
You know, maybe it's just.
Space.
It gets kind of jerky when you got a GoPro on your helmet. You're trying to maneuver and you get so high up off the ground, you get that little bit of metal taste in your mouth where that adrenaline's kind of flowing.
Oh my goodness.
No,
No, that's just the bread just getting.
Oh, okay, I'm like, oh, I see, yeah, okay,
The camera's on the phone.
I'm like.
There you go.
I mean, it's not funny, ha-ha.
Yeah.
It's just, you know, like,
I get it.
oh my God.
How long was that cat up
I know.
They're usually up there for days.
Wow.
You know, I mean, just
there?
a lot of them
Potentially
will.
come down.
A lot of them will. I mean, but you know, the joke used to be you never see a cat skeleton in the tree. I mean, and it used to be something that we, you know, we're not able to respond to. But anymore, I will tell you, they get caught in trees, and a lot of them are cats that are house cats. They've never been up a tree. They climb it because they're scared, and then they won't come down.
And eventually the wind will knock them out.
Yeah.
That's why you don't see the skeleton in the tree. It's a pretty nice cat. It just didn't make it.
Oh, it's
Oh, yeah. I'm not a cat person, but this is hard. Ooh.
you scared?
No, I just don't. He just looks like he's hurting, that's all.
Always fun.
They're just scared. Yeah, we just grab them by the back of the neck and scrub them, and it kind of
Okay.
is reminiscent of what their mothers will do.
Oh, yeah, that's,
So when you grab them behind the neck, it really almost kind of paralyzes them, and it's really very soothing to them as well. I mean, plus, you can imagine, you know, there's a little bit of a danger element. You're hanging in
Yeah,
40, 50
but
feet.
Yeah.
And it happens
All over
more
the
often
place.
than you think. And they may not hit you on the face, but they may come around and they latch
I'm
on.
all really excited to be rescued.
I know.
Hopefully not.
The next day, right back.
We've had some of them else get away from us and we put them in a carrier and they go like right back for the tree. It's just like mad scrambling. And at that point, the attitude's a little different, right? You're no longer a victim, now you're choosing.
Yeah. It's like, we're trying to help you here, right?
Kind of like some of the people who try to help in life, right? Okay, that's the way you want it.
Right, lower.
Oh.
And I think this guy that's up there, this was his first time up. So we do a lot of training, you know, but there's nothing that prepares you for the first time. You kind of go into a disaster, you go up a tree, you know, suddenly now dealing with the cat on the ground is difficult, much less you're, 40, 50, sometimes 80 feet in the air. It can get a little bit hairy, so you can kind of hear his voice, you know, like I can hear it because I know him, you know, a little bit of fear, apprehension.
Is there like a physical requirement, physical fitness requirement in this position?
We don't necessarily test, but what we're going to do is try to use people that, you know, are going to be best suited for that. I mean, we certainly are not going to send somebody up a tree. Basically, all you have to be able to do our job is like lift 75 pounds kind of up to chest level is what it is. So there's some basic physical tests that are required as far as that. When we recruit or get people onto this team, they're going to be a lot further along. Typically, we're not sitting anybody up a tree that's not physically fit.
So we
But
have like a lot of disabled vets that, would maybe want this, but
physically.
Yeah.
You know, may not be able to be a member of the SORT team, but
Yeah.
at least maybe the animal law enforcement side of it.
Yeah, and we have a lot of, I mean, Rod's retired Air Force, I'm retired Air Force as well. I mean, we have a lot of veterans, and I promise you, I will hire veteran in a heartbeat
Sure.
if I know that this is something we really
Yes.
want to do, because I know their values, that kind of thing. But even if they're not able to physically be the one to go up,
Sure.
we need there's a lot more support work that has to happen. You know, and somebody who wants to be involved in operations like that, we always find a place for them. You know, all our really big guys, you know, we've got some guys that are 230, 240, they make a really good anchor.
Sure.
They make great anchors. I mean, you know, and they're happy to do it. I mean, you know, we got one guy who's 140. Whenever we get into hairy situations, we send him 140 pounds up. Yeah, just hope the wind don't blow too hard and knock him into the tree.
Push your that little hole. Oh, there, he's finally coming down. Okay, they say, thanks, Bill.
Yeah.
Good thing is you didn't drop it, so that's good.
Yeah, there you go. All right.
And a lot of times in these situations, what's happening is the owner is the one that's calling us, and obviously, you know, they're distraught. It kind of raises the level of intensity because the owner's there. It was just out on Monday. There was a cat that had been on the roof since Friday. They couldn't get it down. It was a really high apartment complex, and we went up there, and the family is there, and there's like a 4 or 5 year old boy who's like, you know, Ziggy, and I mean, I'm like choking back tears, you know, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, please don't let anything go wrong, because not only, you know, is the cat going to get injured potentially, you know, this kid's going to be scarred for life, you know, I mean, it kind of ups the ante quite a bit. This
That was the pet
is.
over there that was putting the cat
Yeah. This is what they call a sizzle. So this is just some excerpts from what has been shot. This is a little better footage, kind of gives you a better overview of what it is that we do, a lot of the different things that we do. There's nothing graphic or horrific on here. We wouldn't bring that to you all.
Thank you. Yes, for UGO1, we have a 1025, all officers 1020.
We have our dispatch.
We got a call this morning about a dog stuck up here in a mountain on our beam. If we can go up to him, maybe tie a harness. Plan is we'll anchor above him, kind of rappel down to him and hook him up. We got mountain lions, bobcats, bears. Like, could see this dog as prey. The sun's going down. It's definitely getting cold. We leave this dog out here tonight. There's a similar chance it could die. I didn't realize it's going to be a 2.5 mile brutal hike up 2 feet of snow to get to this dog.
Are you guys okay here? Animal law enforcement dispatch. We are the animal law enforcement division of the Pikes Peak region. We have the largest animal control organization in the state of Colorado.
We're one of the few agencies in this nation that does full animal law enforcement. We do full investigations. We're serving people summonses for violations. We're in court a lot.
We have our own surgery center and vet staff at the shelter.
We do a lot of large-scale animal rescue.
We provide in-depth training to our officers.
A lot of agencies that do similar things to what we do not have those capabilities.
If someone is mistreating an animal, abusing an animal, we're gonna find them and we're gonna put them away.
That was pretty good.
You can drive 10 miles within Colorado Springs and be in a completely different terrain area. You know, you're going from the Rocky Mountains to out in barren field. It's super different, so we have to be knowledgeable in all aspects of it and trained to handle that side of things.
We do ice rescue, swift water, anything you can name, we're pretty much equipped and prepared to handle it.
We respond to about 50,000 calls a year.
But you hit everything. You get llamas, you get horses.
Alligators on the east side of Pueblo, mountain lion over here off of the boulevard. Even one time got a call on a tiger. Typically, it's a job that nobody else in the community, like the fire department, the police department, want to do. We don't go knock on doors for good reasons, unfortunately.
We deal with the people that aren't so nice. There was a stabbing and a burglary that was reported at this address. Every call is different. You never know what you're really getting into.
I mean, I understand you're frustrated. Do you now understand? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, because this is your first visit out here.
I am on my 3rd week of training. I'm a little bit nervous about the dangerous part of it. Walking up to someone's door, you don't know what they're gonna come out acting like, or if they're coming out with a weapon.
You're not going to stand in your front yard with this. Yeah. It's a taser.
In this field, in general, you encounter people that aren't afraid to go to jail.
It can be very common that that person wants to become physical with the officer.
We essentially kick the dog down.
There's been people that I have dealt with in the field that have made it very clear that if we ever step foot on their property or try to knock on their front door, that they would have their guns ready.
You're dealing with the same individuals the police department is dealing with, except we aren't armed. Our officers ride solo, and it can be a dangerous job.
The dangers of this job don't really bother me. I'm always one to face things head on and take a challenge, so bring it on.
Are you taking them now?
Yes, ma'am.
When you're dealing with people and animals, the people tend to become very emotional.
He's the one killed my cat. And I know he is.
Fortunately, our officers are very well trained in 1, de-escalating the situation, and 2, defending themselves if that becomes an absolute necessity.
Thank you for being so cooperative. I know this is super hard.
Over the years, when I first started here, we didn't have a veterinary clinic. A lot of animals that we rescued, we just couldn't care for them, give them the medical treatment that they need. This dog was obviously hit by a car, significant trauma, and you can tell that she was hit by a car because you can see tire tracks on her. Typical day, I mean, it's like being shot out of a cannon in a way. I remember distinctly one cat, it had gotten its leg caught in a 6-foot privacy fence, and we got it out of there, and we got back to the shelter, and we ended up being able to save her, and one of the officers adopted her, and so with the surgery center that we have there now, that's been a huge plus. You have to have that passion for the animals, you need to have that care. I mean, it really is about compassion and love.
It's definitely getting cold. We gotta get this dog down here today. Might be our last chance we have. He's still there. He's up there. Looks like he's shaking. He's pretty scared. All right, we're gonna get you down.
This really is a team effort.
Good dog.
Without each and every single member of our team, there is no way we would be able to even come close to doing what we do.
Come on. Come on. This is a scary part. Come on.
This is why we're badass, is we have officers that are trained in using this type of equipment and this gear to get up in this kind of situation, this kind of terrain, and rescue animals. Dog's got a microchip, he's got a tag on, so we'll be able to find the owner and get it back home. It was just like the perfect day.
Almost immediately starting into this job, I realized that it gave me an opportunity to make a difference in the lives of both people and animals. And quite honestly, I've never looked back. I really feel like this is where I'm meant to be.
So, you know, in your guys' programs, we really appreciate the opportunity to come out and talk with you all. But if you run across anybody that, you know, might be a good fit for us, please send them our way. I mean, we'd be more than happy to
talk with them about what we do. We are very open, we are very transparent. You know, our hiring process, we're not only going to require people to take an examination to determine their basic aptitude to learn the job, but we're going to really put them out on the street and let them see what the job is all about so that they know what they're getting themselves into.
Because they may change their mind.
Absolutely,
Yes.
and we know that we're making a good investment. I mean, that is a partnership, and, you know, we try our best to take care and value our staff, and, you know, it can be extremely difficult, and, you know, it really becomes a team and a unit. So when we think about adding a person to that team, we really want to make the best choice we possibly can. We don't do that willy-nilly is what I'm saying, but.
Is there a background check?
There is. There is.
Is there anything that disqualifies?
Yeah,
them?
I mean, a felony, a
Okay.
crime of moral turpitude,
Okay.
and how Colorado will define that, typically child abuse, child neglect, domestic violence, serious assault, things of that nature.
Like drug charges or?
I don't know, you know, times
Yeah,
change.
yeah.
Right? I mean, for me, you know, if
I
you asked
think
me
we have
that
a lot of
question 10
students
years
who,
ago.
you know, want to go into criminal justice, but they maybe not, they can't be an officer because they maybe have something in their past that's drug related or, you know, maybe not, you know, violent.
Yeah, I mean, I did a lot of work with, you know, domestic violence and child abuse, and it's kind of what burnt me out on regular law enforcement, you know, so I will tell you, those kind of things are things that are going to be an automatic disqualifier.
Sure.
I mean, some really poor driving record, you know, meaning you've got 3 to 5 moving violations in a short period of time. Our insurance company is not going to let that person be hired. I mean, you know, and sometimes what happens is people learn about this job and they really feel like this is where I'm, you know, what I really want to do. And those people sometimes will advocate for themselves a little bit more. And I'm not going to say that there's a hard line except for that felony and crimes of moral turpitude, because there's new, you know, legislation out there where if you get up on the stand, that information can be brought up to discredit you. That's what the Brady Act and all of those amendments were about.
Right.
So I'm not going to put anybody into that situation where their past is going to come back to haunt them. And then, of course, that's not going to make us look credible at all either. So those are the only things that would automatically disqualify us. Any other questions?
Please answer internship programs.
You know, we've tried it before. I mean, it's difficult for us because we can't really work with them.
Sure.
You know, we offer ride-alongs. We will have allow people to come in and volunteer, but we don't really have an internship program simply because we don't have the resources to manage, or we don't have the work to really keep them engaged. So they've kind of become a gopher, which I didn't really care for or like. But you know, if somebody's just thinking, hey, or if any of you, I mean, you got some extra time on your hands. You really want to see what it's like? I mean, you know, come on out and jump in the truck. I mean, we really love for that to happen, just because it gives people an inside look and a different appreciation for, you know, the work that we do, of course, which we're very passionate about. All right, awesome. Watch for our show. We should be
Looks good.
yeah, we'll see. It's dramatic.
It is dramatic.
Of course, it's not like that in real life. You know, it's like these extreme periods of forward